to beautiful slave girls and decides to rule this world by going through all the levels one day. Playing hard at his favorite game, Takuma decides to improve his equipment after winning a match. Suddenly the screen starts flashing and blinds him. When he opens his eyes, he sees himself in the form of his game Lady Diablo, surrounded by two stupid girls. One of them is called Cora. She is an elf with two big personalities. And the other is called RM. She is half human, half dwarf. They performed a ritual to summon a familiar who would help them in their adventures, but instead the familiar appeared Diablo himself. He is shocked that he found himself in the world of Crossrava, and at first he is silent like a girl. All they argue because of their shyness and is unsociable. But then he gets angry at them for not paying attention to him and orders them to stop the quarrel and join his ram. The Chulls do not refuse, but because of some magic they are forced to obey. Suddenly collars appear on their necks and they do not understand why there should be a collar on Diab. He suddenly remembers that he is wearing an anti-magic ring that not only blocks any magic directed at him, but also reflects it. They all go to the city together to register with the Adventurers Guild and rent a room. While they were thinking about how to remove the curse, there was a knock on the door. A sorceress, accompanied by her subordinates, entered the room and introduced herself as Sills, the main sorceress of the city. She said that she wanted to talk with the dwarf. Everyone went downstairs and over food. Sills spoke in a very mysterious manner. Ram about what she needs. Diablo asks Ram about it, but her subordinate rudely shuts him up. Diablo looks at him and promises to turn him into a chop, but Ram stops them both and leaves. Diablo asks Ram about the secret, but she refuses to talk. Then he takes her into the room and starts playing with her hypersensitive cat ears. Ram tells him that she is afraid that he will leave her, but he replies that he is the most powerful here and will never leave her. RM very much happy and starts crying. In the end, she admits that the soul of the real demon lord lives in her. Diablo remembers his name from the game because he was the only demon lord, but never appear. So, when Diablo became the most powerful player in the game, he took the throne of the Demon Lord. She tells him that SLS is trying to expel the Demon Lord from her body because if she dies, the Demon Lord will break free and destroy the country. Diablo says that he will find a way to extract her soul and goes for a walk on the street. He runs into a group of girls who are going for the seals. They seem to be drunk and insult him. One of them summons a salamander of the 30th level, which on average is considered a very high level, and attacks the Diablo. The salamander breathes fire on the Diablo, but it does not cause him any harm. To him the 30th level is a child's fun. He approaches the salamander. Diablo breathes fire on her and uses the magic of an explosion to completely destroy the creature. Then he is still at level 150, which scares the others and they run away. The next day Diablo, Cher and RM go to register as adventurers. Ram is already registered and Diablo and Cher are not there. Sheriff fills out forms for both of them because Diab is illiterate who does not understand the language of this world, and after that they must touch the mirror that shows their current level. Cher is now at a decent level of 30. RM is stronger, he is level 40. However, when Diablo tries to touch the mirror, it goes out of control and breaks. After seeing his ugly face, the head of the guild named Sylvia comes to the scene. She leads them to her office and tells Diablo that he is too ugly and even stronger than her. Diablo still wants to work with her, so she gives him a task that, in her opinion, is suitable for such a freak. Their task is to defeat a giant cannibal snake in the forest. They've seen enough of the Wolfman. They walk for 5 hours before they get to the forest, but after going a little deeper into Shera, she wonders that someone is watching them. Diablo turns to her and asks how she knows, to which she replies that elves have a very keen sixth sense. She points to the elves who are hiding in the trees and Diablo uses her magic to destroy the trees and lure them out. It turns out that the elves are the soldiers. It turns out that Shera is a princess Elven Kingdom and she ran away because she did not want to marry her brother as required by tradition. The soldiers think that Diablo made her his slave and tell her that they will free her, but she refuses. Diablo approaches them and says that she is not his and can decide for herself what to do because she is a strong feminist with blue hair. In response, the elven archers shoot at him, but this does not cause him any harm. The elves are shocked and their leader comes forward to use a powerful arrow that pierces everything in its path. That's what she said. He shoots at Diablo, but he stands motionless, and when the dust settles we see the arrow fell to the ground. As my self-esteem and Diablo remained unharmed. Then he uses elemental magic to create an ice field and all the elves fall to their knees. A hooded figure comes out of the forest. This is a guy from the Association of Magicians who attacked him with his salamander. He decided to take revenge on Diabla. He runs away. He is a coward when Diabla recognizes him and orders the elves to get out and never come back. They return to the tavern and wait for the next task. The next day Sylvia gives them another task from the Association of Magicians. At this time, she promises that it will not be a trap because she herself suggested this task. Diabla agrees, but Ram does not want to participate in this mission, so he tells her to stay and take Shira with her. Before leaving, they meet a young adventurer named Emil. He is dressed in golden armor and apparently the strongest fighter in this guild. He challenges Diabla to a fight, thinking that he is holding Shira captive and Rima. Diabla agrees to the fight, and they begin to fight. Emil lunges and swings his sword. Diabla easily blocks the blow and pushes him away. Emil is shocked but quickly comes to his senses and prepares to use a magic spell, but before he can finish, Apple hits him with his magic wand, winning the battle. Emil wants to continue the fight, but Shira and Rem explain to him that Diabla was summoned by them, after which he laughs and leaves them alone. Shira and Diabla set off and get to the castle, where they must complete the task and bring food. But when they get there, they realize that something is wrong. All the guards on the castle walls are tense. Diabla asks what happened, and one of the soldiers answers that 100 fallen Diabla are approaching the castle. He is surprised because the fallen are usually the bosses of demons in this area and never attack in groups. He knows that all these soldiers will not be able to kill even one fallen one, so he volunteers to help them. They close the drawbridge and Diabla takes a position on the bridge. The first fallen approaches him, intending to attack, but Diabla uses a magical blow that kills Pashad and throws him aside. The others seem in shock, but still continue to attack him, and after he kills 30 fallen, their commander, the strongest warrior among the fallen, approaches the bridge and prepares to the attack. She introduces herself as Adele and without saying a word, with incredible speed, she rushes at Diabla. Adele, dazzling and invincible, unleashes a flurry of attacks on him, but he dodges each of them without even trying to reflect or counterattack. Diabla tells her that she must use her most powerful attack because all these pathetic blows will not even scratch him. She decides to use her most powerful attack, rushes at Diabla and hits him 3 times with incredible force with a spear, and Diabla doesn't even dodge, taking blows on herself to break her spirit and the spirit of the rest of the fallen when they see that even the strongest attack of their commander gave nothing. The dust clears and Diabla comes out unharmed, but he admits that for the first time he felt at least something. He tells her to surrender, but suddenly hears a soldier calling him from behind and saying that a very strong enemy has entered the city and is killing adventurers to get cells and a bump. He quickly realizes that they plan to destroy the cells so that the protective barrier disappears and they can attack altogether. He warns all and the rest of the fallen that he is going to use a very powerful attack and they need to retreat, but All refuses. So he uses one of his magical abilities that is so strong that it destroys everything in its path, including all the fallen except All, who is seriously wounded and retreats. Quickly grabs Shira and, using teleportation, returns to the city where he sees a dozen dead adventurers and very the wounded Emil who fights, but the fallen to protect the villages of SA and Rima. Diabla, and he will die. The fallen use their ability to shoot magic bullets, but Diab reflects them and copies them, seriously wounded themselves. Then the fallen use a special ability that increases a force of attraction to the enemy. A Diab again reflects it and copies and then uses it on them with double the force of imprinting. The Blah uses his magic to seal the demon in the Dark Kingdom forever. The next day Sylvia enters their room and informs her that the Elven Kingdom has issued a 10-day ultimatum to return Shira, otherwise they will declare war on people, and she asks her to accept the task of stopping the war and he agrees. Sylvia takes Shira, Rima and Diab to the Lord of the city, who himself is an incredibly powerful man, to get more information about the elves along the way. She tells him that he better watch what he says in front of the Lord because he is also incredibly strong and his strength has never been seen before. Didn't measure. Diabla asks if it's hard to talk to him, and she replies that sometimes he can be quite intimidating, which immediately scares Diabla, who is already afraid to talk. They go into a huge mansion where they see the Lord sitting at a huge table. Sylvia begins to speak in a very scared voice, greets the Lord and tells him that she was leading Diabla, the most powerful adventurer she has ever seen, to help them prevent a war with the Elven Kingdom. The man just looks at Then man tells them to figure it out themselves. Sylvia however asks tell him more, but he very coldly replies that he has already told them everything they need to know. Sylvia makes one last attempt to start a conversation and asks him to introduce himself. The man sighs and stands up before saying that he is the all-powerful ruler of this city and they must carry out his orders at all costs. The girls also introduce themselves. Before it's Diablo's turn, the girls are worried that Diablo will say something rude, but they don't know that in fact he is very scared and can barely think of anything to say. He somehow squeezes out his name and is very glad that he can talk. But then he begins to threaten the Lord when he says that the name of Diablo is similar to the name of a cocky teenager. The Lord, however, ignores this and says to Diablo that as the ruler of this city, he gives him the task of preventing war and protecting the city at all costs. He shows them a map and tells them that according to a report, the elves are hiding in the dense forests near the lake, and according to their estimates, their number is about 100 individuals, so he says it doesn't look like an army. That the problem is not in numbers, in strategies. He explains that the elves are masters of camouflage. They hide in the forests and before you even notice one of them, they will massacre your entire squad without being noticed. He says that if he himself goes with his troops that he will lose countless people for no reason. That's why he sends Diablo, because the caster Diab looks at him menacingly asking if he is going to get rid of him after they made a deal, but the Lord denies that he has there are such intentions and even says Diablo that he will not have to fight with the elves if he gives up Shira so that the Elven Kingdom can return. Diablo, however, she categorically refuses and tells the Lord that this is Shira's personal choice. The Lord looks at Shira and asks if she wants to leave her luxurious life and pretend to be an adventurer, but she replies that she wants to be known not only by her bloodlines because she is herself and does not want to be overshadowed by the crown on her head. The Lord seems to understand and tells Diablo that he doesn't care as long as he avoids war. After that he tells them that they will be accompanied by a royal envoy and introduces them to the girl of a bespectacled knight named Alice. She claims to be a royal knight, which confuses Diablo and his companions because only people with outstanding abilities and high position can become royal knights. She looks at Ren and says that she knows that there is a real demon inside her, but this is just an assumption and that she can turn to her for help. Then she approaches to Sylvia and hands her a large bag of money, saying that this is compensation for the adventurers who died in the last incident, and then immediately approaches the ball and starts a friendly conversation with her, saying that he will protect her from her brother. Diablo is amazed by this woman and her sociability, because in a few minutes she calls for everyone's trust. Then she approaches Diablo and thanks him for protecting the city the last 2 times and says that she will always try to help him. Diablo is afraid that such a pure person like her can see his true essence, so she sharply replies that she should be more careful if she wants to live. However, Alice simply apologizes and says that more won't repeat this mistake. They all leave the mansion and walk through the city. Ram asks why they don't go to the jungle, but he answers that he needs to buy a new staff because the inhabitants of this world are too weak, and he is afraid of accidentally killing someone because of his enormous strength. So he decides to buy a weaker staff to limit his magic. In the end he buys a huge staff similar to the side and heads to the city. Shara runs forward in excitement, but suddenly someone throws a smoke bomb and tries to kidnap Shuru. Diablo hears her voice and immediately waves her staff, dispersing the smoke, but sees that she is being taken away by 2 dwarfs of the headhunter. They are trying to catch up with them, but they are stopped by 2 more dwarfs of the headhunter of Diablo. However, he is not going to mess with them and simply throws them into the wall. But before he can do anything, another guy attacks him from behind with an axe. He is saved by Alex, who appears at the last moment, blocks the blow with her sword and throws the attacker away. Ram finds the last thug in the alley and knocks him half to death. Diablo realizes that the girls are safe and catches up with Shira at incredible speed. They continue to run, but their Ostana is the Golden Bohemal who attacks them and saves Shira. They surround all the headhunters and Shira thanks and Memal tells her that there is nothing to worry about because he is the savior of women and asks Diablo to leave the headhunters to him. He takes them while Diablo tells Shari to let her did not leave him a single step, and they decide to postpone the trip to the jungle until tomorrow and go have a snack the next morning. Cells comes to the guild with his assistants and has breakfast with Diablo and then reports that he may know how to remove the slave collars. They are surprised at such an unexpected turn and ask her to tell her in more detail, and she replies that recently a caravan of slaves appeared in the city, which is leaving in a couple of days. The owner of the caravan is a master of making slave collars and she can help them. Diablo is considering this proposal because he needs to go into the forest to deal with the elves, but the problem with the slave collars is very important. Alice says that their priority should be the Elven Kingdom and preventing war. Diablo replies that defeating the elves is very easy and will not take time. So first they will go and remove the slave collars. He leads everyone into the city and they find a huge caravan and are about to enter. But then Diablo remembers the slave markets that he saw in the manga. They don't care. They enter the tent, and to his surprise the slaves there seem to be living a full life, drinking tea, talking and laughing. A tall woman with a strong character approaches them and asks Diablo if he wants to buy slaves. She looks at the two girls next to him and says that if he wants to sell the beauties, she can buy them at a very good price. But the devil replies that these women are not slaves. The woman slave trader immediately notices that the devil is very strong and this surprises him, but then Shara intervenes, claiming that she also sees his power. They give her a letter from Celis and say that she has never worked with reflected magic, but since Celis sent them, she will try to help. The female slave trader suddenly looks at RN and says that she feels a very ominous energy coming from her, similar to the energy of the evil king of demons. This has a bad effect on Ren and the devil orders her to shut up and do what she is told. Rem says that he wants to go outside because she is not feeling well and Alice volunteers to look after her. Before leaving, Rem asks Shara she saw this ominous energy and Shara replies that she saw it and therefore decided that Rem is a very powerful adventurer, and they leave. The devil must find her magical flow to remove the slave collar. He is trying to find Shara's magical flow, but it is so complex that the devil gives up and decides to try another time. They return to the guild where he looks completely exhausted and Baran and Alice express sympathy for him. He claims that he has finally learned to see the flows of magic, but has not yet figured out how to work with them. Even Rem says that today she is very tired and wants to sleep and Diablo agrees with her. She asks Alice where she is going to rest and she replies that she has rented a room and will sleep there, but does not have time for Alice to leave the room. As the flute begins to play, RM believes that the melody is melodic, but Shara seems she is very scared. She gets up from the chair, sweating and shaking. Suddenly the door opens and an elf with a flute comes in. Shara is shocked to see him and calls him brother, asking why is he here. Everyone is shocked. Having learned about this, the elf introduces himself as Kira, Shara's older brother and the crown prince of the Elven Kingdom. He bows and says that he has come to take Shira home because everyone is very worried. Shara begins to tremble and backs away, and Diablo, in a rage, approaches him and threatens him, asks if he put a bounty on Shira. Kira admits that he put a bounty on her and says that he knows that the headhunters were defeated and captured by Diablo and his team. He lies, claiming that he just wanted to make sure that Shara is with a man who can take care of and protect her and that he is very sorry that this could cause problems. Alice talks about the war that the Elven Kingdom declared, but Kira replies that he is not going to fight with people and that the war was declared by his father, who was very worried about Sherry and her well-being. Diablo begins to think that perhaps he is telling the truth, but Shara suddenly shouts that her brother is not behaving as usual and that he is not so calm and sweet. Alice supports her by saying that in her opinion, he is trying to achieve her in other ways because last time it didn't work out for him. Kira, however, he simply apologizes and says that he was too busy with the kingdom and the rule, so he did not pay as much attention to Sherry as she deserves and promises to fix everything and asks her to come back with him. However, Rima says that he does not know whether Kira is lying or not, but in her opinion, the most important thing is what Shara wants and she must decide whether she wants to stay here or return to the Elven Kingdom. To the surprise of Kira, she agrees and says that Shara's feeling is most important. He apologizes for coming without an invitation and says that Shara is very emotional now, so he will come tomorrow and ask her again about her decision. Diablo asks if he will declare war if her decision does not change and she still wants to stay with them. But Kira immediately says that he will not do this because he values her feelings. If she decides to stay here, he will simply retreat and return to his kingdom along with his troops. Kira, however, he asks the same question and asks Diablo what he would do if Shara decided to return the Elven Kingdom. Diablo replies that this will never happen, but if Shera still decides to return, he will gladly let her go and let her do whatever she wants. That night, Shera seems unable to sleep and looks out the window. Ram wakes up and they start talking about what happened today. Ram asks if Shera trusts her brother, as she replies that she doesn't know if he lied or not. Ram asks what decision she will make, and Shera directly replies that there is no waiver with and will stay with her. Diablo, she says that she wants to continue traveling and then open a cafe where they will serve a lot of food and drinks for other travelers so that she can listen to their stories. She says that when she opens the cafe, she and Raya mom can become a waitress. Ablo bartender Rem smiles, but immediately becomes serious, replies that she doesn't see herself in this yet picture because she has her own problems. Shera asks if she can help with anything, but Ram replies that no one can help her. They decide to go to bed and start over with a clean slate, and Kira stands on a tree in the forest and plays the flute, laughing at the devilish plan that he is going to carry out the next day. Alice and Ram come to prison to report the arrival of Prince Kira, and Alice asks Diablo to be on the alert if Kira comes. After they leave, Diablo begins to cook. Pushin and Shara watches him. When he finishes, he decides to wait for the others, but suddenly he hears a familiar melody. It's the same flute melody that he heard the day before, and he looks out window and sees the one with Prince Kira inside who is playing the flute. He turns around and sees that Shera is standing next to the door, who tells Diablo that she wants to return to the kingdom of the elves to be with her brother. Diablo tries to stop her, but she refuses to stay here and says that she has responsibilities in her kingdom. He runs after her with alarm, watching as Kira helps her get into the carriage and reminds Diablo that he promised to respect Shera's decision. Diablo looks on in despair as Kira orders the coachman to move off and takes Shera away. He stands in disbelief of his eyes until he is distracted by Alice and Ram, who have just arrived. Apple tells him about Shera and suddenly returns to his room. He lies on the bed all day, but in the evening, Ram comes to him and sits next to him. He says that he is sure that Kira's flute has some kind of magical property that made Shera do this, but he has no way to prove it. Ren gets up and tells him that she will save Shara with or without his help, and after a few words of encouragement, Diablo gets up and says that he, too, will save Shara. Diablo, Alice and Ram enter the forest and in a fit of rage, they burn it to the ground. All the elves run out of the shelter and try to escape. He enters a tent in the middle of the field and sees that the sheriff has been tied to a post and they are mocking her. He becomes enraged, cuts the ropes and the mucus sticks to her, singing. He says that will never leave her alone and turns to Kira. He is shocked to see that the forest is burning and says to Diablo that he broke his promise, replies that Shera was under the influence and therefore went with you. Kira again asks Shera if she wants to return to him and snaps her fingers. Shera immediately obeys and replies that she wants to return to Kira, but Diablo orders her, as her master, to tell the truth about the effects of any magic, and the magic color neutralizes Kira's magic. Shera says that she wants to stay with Diablo, and this enrages Kira, and he summons one of the most powerful monsters to kill Diablo. The monster turns out to have several heads, and Diablo is in shock because he has not seen this monster in any game. He uses his magical ability to test her defense, but is surprised to find that she has the same ability to regenerate. Hydra also uses elemental magic, which Diablo cannot reflect, constantly moves throughout the body, and if you destroy the core, then the Hydra will disappear. Diablo follows the advice and rushes to the call, dodges under it, delivering a blow of such force that the entire body of the Hydra explodes along with the core, and she dies. Kira in shock and falls to the ground. Diablo approaches him ready to kill, but Shera asks him not to do this. Diablo obeys and lets him go, but before Kira can run away, an invisible enemy cuts off his head. Everyone is in shock because the attacker turns out to be the lord of the city who brought with him all his soldiers. He tells Diablo that he is going to invade the kingdom of the elves and demands that he give him the Shera. When Diablo refuses, the lord imprisons him in a magical cage from which he cannot get out. Alice stands in front of him and draws her sword, but before she can blink, the Lord's sword cuts him in two. Diablo tries to find the source of magic in the cage and finds the core, destroys it, and gets out of the cage. The Lord challenges Diablo and he accepts it. He does not give Diablo the opportunity to come to his senses and attacks him with a flurry of blows from which Diablo can only dodge. but still recedes a couple of blows. Diablo realizes at the Lord's level is at least 120, and this is the highest level he has seen in this world. Diablo is forced to use a trap to stop the Lord, which impresses him. Then Diablo uses a free spell to catch him, but before Diablo can come to his senses, the Lord breaks through the spell and almost wounds him with a sword. But Diablo manages to throw him away with a magic spell, and this is where the battle ends. Diablo refuses to kill him and returns to the guild's guest house to restore strength after excessive energy consumption. One day, when Rem and Shero were in the forest, they decided to swim in the river, but suddenly Diablo heard Rem scream. He rushed there and was shocked to see that she was being held by Adil. She lets go of Rem. Noticing Diablo, Anne says that now she knows that the soul of the ruler demons are in Rem. She assures Diab that she will not harm Rem. If they harm Rem, then the demon lord will also be in danger. Diab and Adil make a deal. She promises to teach him how to free the soul of the demon lord from Rem's body by harming her. If he allows her to free the demon lord, Apple agrees, because he is sure that after freeing the demon lord, he will be able to defeat him in battle. She tells him to meet her in a couple of days in the Tower of Starlight. Finally, the day comes, but before they can go outside, Alice comes to them and says that they should stay at home because a high-level Imperial Knight who works as a paladin has arrived in the city. But before she can lead them back, they run into the paladin and his subordinates. He looks at Diablo and mocks him for calling himself a demon lord, and when Rem tries to intervene, he uses a spell to knock her down. Diablo recognizes the spell and threatens him that it works, and he lifts the spell. He then turns to Diablo, continuing to taunt him, and uses a petrification spell on him, which Diablo easily reflects. The paladin is shocked because he turns into stone. His subordinates quickly carry him away and run away. Diablo says that the magic spell will sooner or later stop working and he will be fine. Then he returns to his room with the others, where he tells Alice about the agreement between Diablo and Adil. Diablo comes to the Star Tower along with the others, or Adil is already waiting for him. She tells Rem to lie down on the stone table and teaches Diablo how to free the demon lord. Diablo finds the magic core of Ren and is able to free the demon lord, who, to everyone's surprise, turns out to be a little girl. She looks very cunning and impressionable to her that if she does not kill people, she will receive cookies. She agrees to this proposal. Adele seems surprised but respects her. Diablo is confused because the girl doesn't want to fight him because she thinks there's no reason for her, so he decides to take her with him for now. When they return, a giant fallen appears in front of them. He bows to the demon lord and asks when they will destroy mortals. She looks at him in confusion and says that they won't kill a single person, otherwise she won't get the cookies. Could resurrect the demons again. He rushes at her, but he is attacked by Adil, who tells him that he needs to respect the decision of the demon lord. He pushes her away and rushes at her, punching her right in the stomach and grabbing her head, squeezing her because she could not resurrect the demon lord correctly. But before he can kill her, Diablo attacks him with a magical attack which he dodges. He rushes at him again. Diablo casts a magic spell on him which explodes when the fallen advances. Surprisingly, this does not affect him, and he attacks Diablo again. He closes the distance and attacks Diablo with a magical spear, but Diablo uses his ability to reflect magic, which causes him pain. He understands that he cannot defeat Diablo, so he decides to attack the demon lord. But Rem saves her by pushing her aside. Diablo blocks his path and threatens to kill him. But the fallen turns into a bird and runs away. Diablo decides to take the girl with him to protect her, and Shara calls her Clem. When they return to their room, Diablo falls on the bed completely exhausted after using all her magic. The next day, Diablo goes out with the others to have breakfast, but on the way back he notices that Alice, Clem, and Rem note. He returns to their room, but it is empty. He gets more angry. He searches in search of these three. Meanwhile, Alice leads Clem and Rem into a dark alley, and after a while she tells Rem that she wants a real demon to come out of Clem Lord because she hates people and their vices. She wants Clem to kill everyone so that humanity can start all over again. Rem is shocked but doesn't have time to say anything when Paladin appears with his followers. Alice gives him Clem and Rem, saying that they support the demon lord. Rem summons the beast and tries to stop Paladin, but he kills her summoned creature and puts him in a cage. He leads them to the church where he decides to torture Rem to get information in front of Clem. He cuts off Rem's ear and stabs him in the shoulder. Clem tries to stop him, but he wounds her slightly with cuts. She gets angry and he understands that she is a demon, so he tries to kill her, but Rem rushes forward and takes the blow on himself. Ani both fall to the floor and Paladin comes up and pierces Rem 4 times, killing her. This enrages the clan and she turns into a real demon lord, instantly killing the Paladin. She blows up the entire church and loses control. Diablo notices the explosion and runs there. She tells the ball to find Ren and gives her a healing potion. Nanti prepares to stop the Demon King at any cost. Clem attacks Diablo, but he dodges her attacks. He realizes that although her attacks are easy to dodge, they are incredibly powerful. He decides to use his most powerful spell to try to stop Clem. He begins create magic circles around Clem, dodging her attacks. Clem understands what is happening and instead of hitting him uses her dark magic, which Dia blocks at the last moment. She does not give him time to recover and attacks again, but this time he reflects her magic. Even after such a powerful attack, she gets up and knocks Diab down with a huge moon. He gets up and starts running around her again, creating magic circles. Meanwhile, Sherry uses all her magic potions and revives RM, but before she has time to move, a huge boulder flies at them, which fortunately blocks Emil, who helped them in the battle. Finally, Diablo creates a magic circle around her and uses her spell, which is incredibly powerful. Clem, seriously wounded, still gets up, and Diablo almost ran out of magic, but Ran and Shara approach her. They talk to her and are able to reach her real self, which helps her cope with her anger and she returns to normal. By the time BS Zaken rises, the sun and Sylvia approach them. She says that she cannot trust Clem and wants to hand her over to the Imperial Guards, but Diablo offers to enslave Clem to force her to obey his orders. Diab successfully manages to enslave her and Sylvia decides to hide the fact that Clem is a demon lord. They return to their room where Alice appears at night and puts a knife in Shara's throat. She leads them to another room where the seriously wounded idol lies. She begs them to save her and although the Maple refuses to help, Diab tells her that she needs to save the maiden. She casts a powerful spell on Edel and saves her. Alice is amazed by their kindness and decides to commit suicide for betraying them, but the devil uses his magic to destroy her sword and save her. He tells her that she must live and try to atone for all the lives that she destroyed, and she smiles at him through her tears and agrees. Several months have passed since that incident and the Diables, together with Shiro and Rome. One day, they decided to go outside to bask in the sun. Sun and Dia decided to try new magic. When the girls asked what kind of magic he wanted to try, he replied that he had been training in the magic of flight for a long time and was ready to show them. He walked up to a rotting log lying on the ground and took out his sword and then cast a spell. Suddenly the log began to rise into the air, which very surprised the girls. After all, they had never seen such a thing. Diab told them that for the King of Demons, the magic of flight is a trifle, and to show them how good he is, jumped onto the log. Then he decided to poke around a little more and flew up even higher and further from the girls, but the log began to sway and he realized that he still needed to practice. Thinking about how to increase his level, he suddenly notices a huge ray of light emanating from the depths of the forest, and even the girls seem to feel that some kind of strong magic is going on there. Diablo heads there, captivated by the powerful aura, but suddenly his flight magic stops working and he begins to fall. He flies by through the branches of trees and falls on something soft and sticky. Turning around, he sees a white-skinned beautiful girl who is lying on the ground and calling him God. He seems confused and the guy shouts at him for killing him. The mushroom of the beast. Diablo understands that the guy looks like a paladin from the Holy Church and it looks like he really likes Diablo sausages. Quickly begins to act like a tough guy and tells the guide that he don't care about his mushroom because he is the King of Demons. But before he can finish his sentence, the girl calls him God again. She looks at him with eyes full of devotion and introduces herself as a llama who is his devoted follower and prayed to him for a very long time. She covers herself and thanks Diablo, not understanding why he calls him God. Suddenly, the sausage lover declares that Diablo is not God but just a pathetic demon, and Diablo tries to explain that he is the King of Demons, but the girl interrupts him again and calls him God. She claims that Diablo came here from heaven thanks to her prayers. Then she warns Diablo to be careful because this paladin is a high-ranking person and very dangerous. The paladin gets angry and declares that he will kill them both. Diablo turns to him and asks why the church wants to kill the priest, but the paladin replies that he is just following the orders of a high-ranking churchman named Viston. The paladin decides that he has already talked enough and uses the vial to create a giant hunter worm who, like Diablo, understands at least the 60th level. Diablo praises him for being so high level because there is no one stronger in the city, but he claims that this is not his rival. Suddenly, the earth falls under Diablo and he falls along with the Lumo. It turns out that he set a trap. He catches the Lumo and dodges the jaws of the worm before it can close them and jumps through the hole to the surface. Then he quickly turns around and uses Iron Magic to easily tear the worm into a million pieces, which shocks the Paladin because he has not expected such strong wind magic from Diablo. Paladin seems a little surprised but mocks Apple, saying that he will not be able to use this magic again because it consumes a lot of mana, but Diablo replies that he can use this spell 100 times if he wants. Paladin thinks that Diablo is lying and then throws several bottles on the floor, which turn into a bunch of monsters of fairly high level. This does not affect Diablo in any way and he immediately uses a powerful ice magic spell that instantly covers the entire ground with ice and freezes the Paladin along with all his monsters. Then he turns to Lamb, but he realizes that she must also be very cold, but she just walks forward and immediately falls into his arms. Ren and Shara run into the forest and see that he is holding an unconscious girl in his arms. They ask if he attacked her too. He tells them that he is not doing this anymore and asks them to follow him, and they leave for the city. By the time May falls, Lamb comes to in bed surrounded by Ren and Shara, and they quickly become friends. Lamb asks about their relationship with Diablo, and they answer that he is their master because they are his slaves. Shara immediately begins to tell all the details about Diablo, but Rem shuts her up and says that Diablo is just their leader. Meanwhile, in another room, Diablo orders Clem not to leave the room and just eat the cookies that she has. Then he returns to Lamb and the others, and Lamb immediately asks whether he is God or not. Diablo understands that he cannot reveal his identity and says that he will not tell nothing to her until she proves her worth. Lamb immediately gets out of bed and bows to him and then says that from now on, she will serve him. He asks what position she holds in the church and she begins to glow brightly and then says that she is the high priestess of the central church. This shocks everyone around because the head priest is one of the highest ranking people in the church. Rem asks why a paladin from the central church is persecuting one of the highest ranking priests in the entire kingdom. Ilm answers that the church is run by people called cardinals and she believes that one of the cardinals is plotting something against her. Therefore, instead of challenging her to a boxing match, they decided to kill her. Moreover, all the paladins and church knights obey the head of the cardinals, known as Weiss. Diablo asks if she has any assumptions why the cardinals could be angry with her, and she thinks before answering that she asked them about illegal goods and money that they have, or perhaps she ordered an investigation into them. Diablo understands that she has a brain like a hot dog and she cares more about morality than about her own life because she doesn't even understand how easily these people can take her life. Ram asks why she was in the forest and Lamb replies that she went from the capital of the kingdom through the domain of the old demon lord to a neighboring city where the main paladin was sent earlier. She wants to tell them everything that is happening in the church and that they are hiding behind the work of God and wants to expose them. RM thinks that it would be easier to make a video about them on YouTube, but Lamb claims that the main paladin is a famous one, a warrior who participated in many wars and is really noble. She claims that he will definitely help her and even protect her from these people because the trio, one of her paladin friends, knows him. She cries because of the death of her friend, and Rem says that the church will send even more killers after her as soon as she finds out that she is alive. She swears that she will not be afraid of these people and will cross the border to find the paladin. Diablo suddenly remembers that in that area there are dungeons that he still wanted to explore. After hearing her story, Ren and Shara look at Diablo and ask him to lead Lon through the city so that she gets to the paladin safe and sound. He thinks a little and understands that interfering in the affairs of the church can be very dangerous because the church actually rules the entire country. But he doesn't want to leave this poor girl alone. He comes to the conclusion that if he just goes with her and leaves her in a neighboring city, then there won't be any problems. He steps aside and, taking the form of a demon king, says that he will help her because he is strong and mighty. Lon falls on their knees to thank him, and then Clen and Idol enter the room and immediately begin to cry because they miss the cookies they were eating previously. Lon immediately looks at them warily and asks who they are because they feel dark and sinister magic coming from them. Meanwhile, Clen and Idol feel the presence of a priest from the church because they are annoyed by her magical aura. Diablo is impressed by their ability to sense magic but suddenly realizes that if this continues, it will start fighting. Adele does not waste a second and immediately rushes at the Loomis, but at the last moment he stops her by blocking the blow. He begins to speak in his demonic voice and says that if they try to fight again, this will be their last fight, and they both give up. Clem says Loomis stays. They set off on a magic ship that sails along the sand to a neighboring city, and after 2 weeks of travel during which they had to endure many storms and sunny days, and even get lost, they finally see the magic tower that was their first goal. They get off in the city to the shore and Shara immediately starts whining that she wants to eat, but Ram tells her to shut up because they are here to take the Lum to the main paladin. After looking around the city they realize that it is not very lively on the way. The Diab meets a little girl who asks if he wants to know where the newly discovered dungeon is and says that she is a dungeon guide and lockpicking master named Horn. Diab asks, "Oh, dungeon she is talking about," says, and the girl replies that there are huge statues of lions at the entrance, which immediately attracts attention. He grabs her and asks if there are 13 floors in the dungeon, but the girl honestly replies that no one can go beyond the 3rd floor, so she doesn't know. Deep looks at the squid from the 3rd floor, which has a bunch of colorful slugs, and says that she really saw a bunch of colorful slugs there. Deep realizes that this is the dungeon he was looking for. And the squid asks who he is before he is time. Answer: he notices that Lum is in trouble again. She seems to be protecting a poor woman and her child who need a priest to cure the baby, but the paladin pushed her away because she has no money. The squid says that this could be a problem because the paladins in this area are complete and very cruel to those who cross them. He sees that Lum is arguing with the paladin, but he likes it, and he notices that the paladin is raising his fist, but the Deep immediately appears between them and uses his magic wand to instantly throw the paladin falls to the ground, and Shara rejoices, but Deep immediately draws attention to the poor woman and asks what happened. The woman says what her child is sick and shows a bunch of tattoos on his thigh. Deep immediately understands that this is a fatal disease that is spreading like an epidemic. She says that her son urgently needs a doctor, because if any more marks appear, he will die. Lum tells her to take the child to church, but the woman starts crying, and the squid explains that the church charges a lot of money for the treatment of any disease. Lum can't believe that this is happening in this world, but Horn tells her that it's time to wake up because the real world cruel. Finally, she looks at the crying child and declares that she will cure him, no matter what the cost to her. Horn says that it is easier said than done, but Lam replies that God will protect her and asks Diablo for permission. He gives her the go-ahead and she prepares to perform the ritual. The child is placed on a sheet and everyone kneels down and begins to pray for him. Suddenly the sky becomes cloudy, and when Lam touches the child's forehead, everything around begins to glow bright yellow. Everyone drops to their knees, amazed by the incredible magical energy, which even surprises Diablo, who suddenly notices that the marks on the child completely disappear, shocking everyone. The child at once it gets better, and the others are happy about the recovery. The poor Bo, while the others are still in awe of the miracle they saw. Suddenly, the earth begins to tremble and everyone gets scared, and the man on the tower rings the bells announcing that a monster called the Colossal Whale is approaching. Then the sand whale seems to be chasing a magic boat that is heading straight towards the city, and Horn says, what if the whale crashes into the city? Then everything will be destroyed. Everyone is scared. The Diablo takes command and declares that he will stop this disaster. Everyone tells him that it is too dangerous, but he arrogantly replies that he is a demon lord from another world and can easily cope with the monster. He gets ready, but is very nervous because he does not use this magic often, but, gritting his teeth, he begins to read spells, and a black magic ball appears from his wand, which turns into a black hole and begins to suck in another spell. Puts his wand on the ground, and a huge arrow appears from the black hole, but he is afraid that even this may not be enough to defeat such a monster. He realizes that he has no other choice and uses the last combination of spells, releasing a magic arrow that passes through one of the black holes and hits the whale in the face. It seems that this does not harm the whale, but after a while he stops in front of a powerful explosion of dark magic that begins to destroy the whale and sucks him in, when suddenly an unknown person uses a special attack on whale, severely injuring him. Diablo, surprised by the tower of magic, when suddenly an unknown woman shoots magic pistol destroying the whale's body, which shocks him because only a very high-ranking person can use a magic pistol. Keith finally falls and the threat is over, and Shara and Ram thank him for protecting the city. He tells them that for him it is nothing when suddenly a horseman with a spear appears and asks Diablo if he used dark magic against the monster. Diablo immediately felt his power when everyone paladins surrounded the man, calling him boss and claiming that Diablo is a demon who is wreaking havoc in the city. Diablo realized that this is their leader and realized that they could get into trouble. He proudly declared that he used dark magic, and Beth said that it was he who attacked the monster. Diablo was impressed because this means that he has at least level 130. Lum came out from behind and from the slaw. Beth, why are there so many paladins in the city who do not help poor people, and asked was it the cardinal who gave such an order. Beth immediately realized who she was, but one of the stupid paladins began to speak rudely to her to get out, otherwise he would beat her up, which angered Beth, and he hit the man so that he lost consciousness. Beth immediately stopped and fell to his knees, apologizing for the words of his subordinates and claiming that he had only seen her once when she was little. Diab wondered whether he could be trusted when a woman's voice was heard from behind, and Dad was shocked to see that she was flying before noticing that she was wearing a special cloak called a Crimson Wing and a magic pistol in her hand. Beth shouted at her to show respect to the head priest, but the woman told him to shove his spear up his ass before going down to the ground, and introduces herself as a fan who runs this area. She asks if Lan is here to demand even more money from the poor people in the area, while Dath claims that they are forced to ask for donations from their followers because the church is closing and they have no money. The fan asks why their God doesn't give them money if they need it so much, but Lam starts preaching about how they are just believers, and this honestly pisses everyone off. The fan immediately points a gun at Lan and asks if her God will protect her now. At that time, as Bat and Diablo try to attack her, to her surprise, she dodges their attacks and begins to float in the air, laughing at them because they believe in God. After that, she declares that she is not interested in the church and she is only looking for a person who used dark magic on a whale. This scares Diablo a little, and he asks what she is going to do with him if she finds him, and she replies that she will force him to work for her, and if he resists, she will force him. Then he leaves, saying that she will return soon, and Diablo realizes that she already knows that it was he who used dark magic. When evening comes, they all get into the carriage, and Bat says that they all need to rest in his mansion, where Sharon notices a huge line of people waiting to meet with the priest in a tent. Bat replies that they are all waiting to meet with the priest in the tent because Fen closed all the churches in their jurisdiction. He claims that everyone wants to meet the priest and get a miracle that will help them solve their problems, so they stand in line for days. Then Diablo notices a group of wealthy people who resting on chairs and explains that they are also standing in line, but they are given special attention because they donated large sums. Looks like Luma is shocked by this, but Beth says that they don't have enough priests, so they have to pay attention to those who donate more money to the church. Finally, they get to Beth's mansion, where they eat curry, and then Luma asks Beth if they can talk privately. Later that night, Luma and Beth talk privately, and he explains that he created a squad of paladins in the city to protect the only one priest, but it was his fault that the paladins became rude and disrespectful towards the locals. He promises Luma that you will deal with this problem, and then says that there is also a disease that kills people every day. Luma seems surprised and asks if he considers a disease, and he nods in response. She claims that it is not a disease, but a curse, and realized this when she was treating that poor child in the city. According to her, someone has cast a powerful curse and is deliberately threatening the lives of people in the city. It seems that Beta was taken by surprise, and he slowly smiled before saying that he didn't think that she would be able to tell the difference. Lime immediately jumped up from her seat and asked what he meant when she felt weak, dizzy, and then fell to the floor. RM realized that it was a betrayal and tried to defend herself, but then she used a scented candle and also fell. A little later, Diablo, Shara, and Horn entered the room, hearing that something was wrong. They did not find anyone there, and Horn said that he saw how Beth took them away. It turned out that Diablo had suspicions about him, but he didn't think that Beth would act so quickly, and so he found himself in an advantageous position. Meanwhile, Lam and RM woke up and found that they were tied to a cross in a strange ritual room, which turned out to be incredibly large. While they were trying to figure out how to escape, they Vili as Beth climbed the stairs with her assistant named Shiel. They went upstairs and prepared for the ritual, but Lai said that in such a vicious place the ritual would not work. But Beth just laughed and said that the ritual would work because the place is vicious. Then he ordered Shil to show them the jar that she brought in, which was someone's deadly snot, and said that this curse causes a fatal disease. He said that this curse is pure evil and therefore he recruits devout people and makes them commit sins such as gluttony and bloodshed, which strengthened his cursed powers. She asks him why he wants to condemn so many to death poor people, that he replies that he wants to kill only one person and that person is herself. Cannot understand what made such a noble and pious man commit genocide for the sake of killing one person. He says that it was all because of the problems he faced in life. His family was killed by his best friends. Betrayed by his superiors, he was threatened. He says that all this made him greedy and sinful and there is no turning back. Then he orders the head priest to be tortured before killing him and leaves. He goes up to the altar and takes out a torture device, but then Diablo appears. He looks back and realizes that in the game, it was here that he fought with the boss to pass the level. Suddenly he hears the voice of BT, who comes up to him and says that she knew that Diablo would come. Diablo smiles and says that he has already deduced the activity information from each paladin in the mansion. He says that he knows that it was she who created the death knell disease and proudly declares that he is a demon lord from another world who knows everything, but BT does not believe him. He becomes ashamed and he understands that only Ran and Shero are stupid and gullible enough to believe that he is really the king of demons. Beth admits that Diablo has immeasurable strength and magical abilities, but asks if he knows how to fight on the stairs. This infuriates Diablo and he takes out his magic wand and uses explosive magic on the BT. Dust rises everywhere. An earthquake begins and stones fall from above. The stairs under him break and he falls to the ground. And Beth says that if he is smart, he will no longer use this attack because it will kill his friends too. Diablo understands that BT is right and besides, he is a very fast Diab is thinking about his options, but Beth rushes forward and pierces him with a Diabloceratops spear, trying to look confident in himself. Then he creates a magical explosion from his wand that looks like a homing missile and attacks only the target without touching the surrounding area and at the same time installs an apple on the wall for a few minutes. He expected Beth to get scared and jump over the ball to him, but Beth just goes down the stairs holding the railing with one hand and waits for the ball to fly past and then rises again. This shocks Diablo and he doesn't know what to do because BT uses one of the most powerful martial arts techniques and plunges the spear deep into Diablo's chest until he can't defend himself. His heart skips a beat when the wand falls out of his hands and he realizes that he's about to die. Beth pulls the spear out of his chest, falls to the ground and laughs in his face, claiming that he always carefully prepares to defeat even the strongest opponents. Suddenly Diablo grabs him by the backhand and joyfully declares that killing the demon is not so easy before casting a powerful spell from which his entire hand turns into an ice statue. Beth gets scared and immediately throws a spear and, with his free hand, tries to cut off his other hand. Diablo laughs in his face and acts confidently, although in fact he is very scared because he really thought that he would die and survived only thanks to a magical item that can absorb one fatal attack, and his horns were restored, helping him to heal quickly. Beth seemed scared and thought that Diablo is immortal and decided to use his last trump. Immediately pulls out a knife and goes for Cream, threatening to kill her if Diablo doesn't become RM. Shouts at Diablo to continue fighting, but he immediately stops, realizing that he has no more options, when suddenly an arrow hits Ala and she drops the knife. He turns around and sees that the shooter was none other than Sharo. Suddenly they noticed that Al is limping and then turns into a stone of what Shara had to wait because Clem gave her the bow. Meanwhile Horn makes his way to the altar and frees Ram with a knife. Diablo finally believed that they won this battle and ordered Beth to surrender, but he fell to one knee and began to threaten that they would all regret their actions. Diablo realized that the battle was not over yet. Death dealt Diablo one of his strongest blows and he was forced to respond with his dark magic as a result of the clash of their magic. Huge stones rained down from the ceiling, but despite the fact that the forces were equal, Diablo used his last blow to defeat Beth. Then he quickly descended with Shiro and jumped to RM, ordering everyone to gather around him. Then he used his levitation magic to raise the altar into the sky so that they would not be crushed by the falling stones. Everyone was happy and began to celebrate. Suddenly Lum fell to the floor and rang, and Shiro realized that she had been infected by the death-ringing Diablo. A shock, but realized that Beth must have cursed her before she died. Shara told her to be healed just like she healed the child, but Diablo replied that the priest could not heal himself no matter what. They all turned to Diablo when Lum seemed ready to die, but Diablo told her that he would not let her die such an inglorious death and stated that he had a plan. that could to cure Lun and everyone present. He will not stop until he achieves success. They all ask him what he is up to, and he proudly declares that they are heading to the dungeon that Horn mentioned because, according to him, there is a special treasure that can very easily cure this disease, and he promises to give this treasure to Lum so that she will recover and then cure the entire city from this large-scale pandemic. Lum thanks him from the bottom of her heart and says that no matter what happens, she will save every resident of the city because she cannot see how someone is getting hurt. Like the head priest, Shara also looks optimistic, and Horn tells Diablo to lead the navigation to her because she can handle it. Everything seems to be going well, but suddenly RM draws Diablo's attention to a flotilla of approaching ships with the Fin flag, and they see Fa herself with her magic pistol and bright personality. The ship is completely filled with stormtroopers, and before our heroes can react, they are surrounded by ships of Diablo. Fans has no idea what is happening and is very nervous because that they are already trapped. He understands that they are in a very bad situation because he just got into a fight with Beth, and because of this he has almost no health left and almost no mana to use powerful spells, and if they enter into battle with a high-level shooter they will be destroyed in a matter of seconds. She immediately got to the point and asked Diablo if he had come here from the depths of the earth, and is he really the demon lord that Vac Diablo was talking about. Seemed to not know who Vac was, and Shara and RM advised him not to give in to provocations, because if he admits that he is the demon lord, she can start shooting at him. He tried his best not to give himself away, but in the end he shouted loudly that he was the demon lord Diablo, and no one would stop him from achieving glory and complete domination. Shara and RM realized that he was hopeless, and Diablo entered into the role and took out his magic stick, waving it and shouting that he will not run away and hide, and if the Fen and her minions want to attack, they can do it, but they need to remember that they will die a terrible death. The Fen does not give up so easily and shouts in response that she is not afraid of the barking of a mad dog, and orders her people to take aim at the demon lord. The soldiers are preparing to shoot, and the girls do not know what will happen next. Diablo is shocked that she has so many people with magical weapons and understands that there is no way out of here, but then Lam gets up and goes forward, asking the Fan to stop. She claims that Diablo is not the enemy here because he saved not only her but also the inhabitants of this city, and she is ready to bear full responsibility for his actions because she considers him an alive humanity. The Femme replies that she does not understand why he calls himself a demon lord, but before Diablo can say something stupid, Shara and RM come forward and announced that they are going to the nearest dungeon to find a cure for the disease, and Shara asks the Fan to wait for their return. The Fan seems to not trust them at all and does not believe what the cure exists, and asks why a person calling herself a demon lord should look for a cure for this disease. Lam immediately shows her delicious chicken thighs with crosses and declares that Diablo cares about ordinary people and only for their sake he is ready to go down into deadly dungeons. The Fen seems amused by this and says that he will make them his prisoners and find out more information. But Diablo understands that she cannot allow them to grab her and takes out her magic wand to use the special magic of the earth. A magic circle appears, and suddenly, the lamb next to them begins to tremble violently, scaring all the minions of Fin Ablo. He raises Lam and tells the others not to leave until they run away. As a result, they escape from Labfen, and by evening they are already sitting in the desert under the wreckage of a ship on who delivered them to Horn and eat on an open fire while everyone is enjoying a beautiful evening. Diablo seems embarrassed and worried because she remembers that the Femme could have pulled herself together during the escape and shot at him, but although she could have easily riddled him with bullets, she decided not to do this. Rem distracts him from his thoughts and offers him a piece of meat that she cooked on the fire, and Shara offers him a piece of her juicy meat. Shara looks at Ren and says that her meat is also delicious. Diablo agrees that meat. Rima soon starts to move and says that they need to eat their fill and have a good rest because they will get to the dungeon only after 3 days. After 4 days they finally get to the dungeon, and Shara immediately runs inside, but she is attacked by a statue, but the Diabs are smart as always and immediately uses explosion magic to destroy the monster. The door to the dungeon opens and they go down while Horn-Shi explains that each floor is a trap, and to go up to the next level you need to go through it. The first floor is a huge labyrinth that you need to go through to go up to the next level. Shara seems afraid of getting lost, and RN is having fun saying that she will soon turn into a skeleton if she gets lost. She immediately clings to Diablo, but he needs to remain a real man who is not fooled by girls, so he tries to be cool and tells her to leave him alone. It ends with her crying a little, but fortunately Ram tells her that he did this to move easily and protect her. Diablo was glad that Ram saved the situation before Len asks how the hell they are going to deal with this labyrinth. Horn says that they have nothing to worry about because she has a map of the entire labyrinth that she took with her last time, and with its help they can easily get through. She takes the map out of her pocket, but she realizes that the labyrinth has completely changed. Diablo tells her that the walls of the labyrinth are constantly changing, which means any maps are useless. Everyone is surprised that Diablo knows, but he can't admit that he has already passed this level before. Diab decides to figure out the maze, as he knows best, using his powerful magic to destroy the walls, which shocks everyone. He goes forward knowing that there are no more traps, but Ram tells him to be careful, and he realizes that he can't just say that he has already passed this level, so he decides to act like an arrogant demon lord and declares that she is stupid if she thinks that some pathetic demon can stop the Lord of Diab. Ram starts crying and Shara tries her calm down. They go down the stairs again and Shara asks Ram, why is Diablo behaving this way? They go forward, and Diablo easily deals with all the monsters that come his way using his powerful magic to defeat everyone. The next trap makes them hang over the pit, with Glory asking them tricky questions, and if they don't answer then the platform will drop even lower into the lava. Fortunately, the crowbar answers correctly, and they move on to the next level. They went through the entrance to the next level and found themselves in a hall filled with ice gorillas. It seems they are waiting for some kind of performance, and Dee remembers a sign on which it is written that the next level will open only after they perform in front of the gorillas. Diab remembers how in his team there were girls who performed on stage, and this allowed them to move on, and the girls were afraid that if they performed poorly, the gorillas would attack them. Diab tells them not to worry and gives them a short course in dancing, and thanks to his skills as a producer, the girls quickly learn. The show starts and all the gorillas seem to be enjoying the show endlessly, and the door to the next level opens. They seem to be tired from all the work done and decide to do a little